Very on.
So last week we started with the overview of the Yoga Sutras. We started to talk a little bit about the first verse, and I don't think we'll probably get past the first verse here today, but we'll be looking particularly at the word ataha, yoga, and yoga. Ataha yoganushashanam. So interestingly, you see that this A here has a diacritical mark over top of it. So this makes it a long A. So when we're chanting yoganushasana, so we'll often see this in Sanskrit. So if you watch the keyboard here, this is a little tricky there. Yoga nu anushas So I might not have done that perfectly grammatically correctly, but it's what they do a lot in Sanskrit is they'll take these words and they put them all together. I'm forgetting what the Sanskrit term is for it, but there's, especially with these long A's, a lot of, if a word ends with an A and begins with an A, then they put them together.
Are you referring to Sandhi?
Sandhi grammar, yeah. So that was just a side tangent, but so ataha is referring to now, to remember God or to invoke auspiciousness. So we went over that last week. I went into the book inside of Patanjali's words, and Gagan, I was sending you some stuff from that the other day when we were chatting. I was taking pictures of that book. And he's gone into Sanskrit dictionaries, and I really appreciate his labor with doing this because then you can just grab it in one book. And he doesn't do every word, but like important words, he has like all of the Sanskrit all of the meanings from the dictionary, the Sanskrit dictionary. So auspicious beginning, expressing the beginning of an action. So in this case, the action is the beginning of the Yoga Sutras. An interrogation or inquiry into a doubt. So interrogating, beginning an inquiry. So we can see how this relates to the whole Yoga Sutras because the Yoga Sutras is an inquiry into samadhi, into yoga, into states of yoga. Another one is after this. So ataha means after this, or you could say thereafter. And then next, it means what's going to come next. So it's like we're saying now, and then it's also what's next. So all of these things are actually relevant to the word ataha as used in the Yoga Sutras. And then after then, now, sort of like after then, now what? So it's like after this, now we're going to begin the study of the Yoga Sutras. So we talked about this last week, that other sutras begin with the word ataha. So the Brahma Sutras are the Vedanta Sutras. Ataha, Brahmana Jinjanasa. And my pronunciation is probably not perfect of that. But then, therefore, the question of Brahman, the absolute. Now we're going to explore the topic of absolute Brahman. And the first one from the Narada Bhakti Sutras is, now we will explain and examine devotion. So I was reading Swami Veda Bharata's. He's a student of Swami Rama, who was the founder of the Himalayan Institute. Have you guys ever been around the Himalayan Institute or heard of it at all? Himalayan Institute, Swami Rama is really top-notch. He was one of the gurus that came in what we would refer to as the guru invasion. I'm not sure exactly what year he came, but like in the late 60s, early 70s. And really high-quality Hatha Yoga teachings, full system, Ayurveda, in-depth scholarship, the whole thing. Swami Veda Bharata, I thought this was a very interesting comment on ataha. each moment arises directly from infinity. So it's just like really profound. Each moment arises directly from infinity. Each moment dissolves into infinity. The next moment also arises directly from infinity. Concentration on what is between the dissolution of the prior moment and the rising of the subsequent moment open the gateway to infinity. It's a bit of a mind bender. Each moment arises directly from infinity. Each moment dissolves into infinity. The next moment also arises directly from infinity. Concentration on what is between the dissolution of the prior moment and the rising of the subsequent moment opens the gateway to infinity. So last week I was talking about Ataha is calling us into the present moment, and he's illuminating the richness of how the present moment is the gateway to the infinite. He's saying it in sort of complex wording, but that complex wording can be very illuminating. Now, these are lists from Paramahamsa Pragyanananda, and these are not exact quotes, but he talks about 6 different aspects of the word ataha. So I put in bold the ones that are the most relevant. So auspiciousness, remembering the divine now. So it's this whole thing of remembering, coming into the present moment, awakening into the present moment. He said that question, it's like a question. Do you want realization or not? Because the whole Yoga Sutra is about the topic of realization. And it's like, if you're going to study the Yoga Sutras, one would assume that one has at least some level of curiosity. Like if you're purely interested in yoga for like the cultivation of a physical body, you might not be interested in the Yoga Sutras, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But it would be useful to know, because like if you're interested in this concept of self-realization or samadhi, or it's not even a concept, the direct experience of it, this Yoga Sutra is a manual to help us explore it. So with Ataha, it's talking about the effort and the initiation we need on the journey as well. And then again, we see thereafter was one of the meanings of Ataha. So what is after this crossing? You know, like we're beginning this, rising into this present moment, beginning this journey of what yoga is. And now I have qualification, what's adhikara, which is, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then Ataha is promise of peace, bliss, joy, and calmness. So this is a list from Pragyanananda about Ataha, and then the other one was a list from Reverend Jagannath, and they're both, there's like so much meaning, so much juicy meaning in this word, just the first word in the Yoga Sutras. So I have the first one in bold, auspiciousness, remembering the divine now, because that's really the main meaning of what Ataha is referring to in the Yoga Sutras, the most important. But when it talks about adhikara, it's talking about qualifications, so the qualifications of a seeker. Now, this is an interesting thing from the Vedanta tradition. The adhikara are the 6 treasures. Shat sampat. Shat meaning 6, and then sampat is the 6 treasures. Now, when they talk about in Vedanta, the big thing is cultivation of these qualities. So when these qualities are cultivated, they say that the likelihood of the direct experience of the eternal oneness is a natural byproduct. So in a lot of yoga traditions, there'll be like in a meditation tradition where you're doing a lot of meditation. Meditation is what you cultivate. Now you're probably also working on personality things, but you use meditation, or you might be using physical postures or pranayama or like whatever outside tool. In Vedanta, they put a lot of emphasis on these temperaments or personality traits, because they say that you're really not qualified unless you have these. Now, this can be very, very unpleasant for a lot of more hippie-minded people where it's like, well, everything's all good, and it's like we're all qualified, and it's like, well, no, we're usually not qualified. I'm not qualified for tons and tons and tons of things. There's more things that I'm disqualified from than I'm qualified for. Like I'm not qualified to be a heart surgeon or a computer programmer, or just like start the list of things I'm not qualified. I'm qualified to be a cook. I know how to do that. I'm qualified to teach hatha yoga. I'm qualified to give massage. I'm qualified to study. I'm qualified to teach in this capacity because my teachers have asked me to teach in this capacity. I might not be the most qualified teacher out there. I'm not. But there's just these realities and something about the freedom mentality of Americans, or the misdirected freedom mentality. We have a hard time with this, but it totally makes sense if you think about it. So quietude, being able to become quiet, become still. Self-restraint, being able to control ourselves. I've been thinking a little bit about Swami Shivananda, bare insult, bare injury, the highest sadhana. And I had somebody today who was insulting, who was kind of being a little bit rude to me, a family member, who I won't reveal their identity. But, I started to get I started to feel a little reactive. But then I practiced self-restraint, and I didn't, engage the person back from the ego level. I kept it friendly, even though I could have easily locked horns and gotten unpleasant with the person. So a little bit of restraint goes a long way with eliminating drama. So we here at Triple Crane like to keep drama low. All right, so withdrawal from worldly interest. This can also be really difficult for a lot of Westerners to understand, because we're so caught up in the conditioning that we can become happy by gathering and accumulating experiences and or stuff. Now, a lot of people are kind of beyond the stuff accumulation, but especially in the age of social media, we're very, very, very driven by the accumulation of things. Like if I have this experience, if I get another like on Facebook, I have accumulated. One of my friends, he put up a thing on Facebook and he said, "You better be careful. My Facebook post got 40 likes. I'm gaining lots of influence," making light of the situation.
Some of us accumulate Yoga Sutras commentaries.
Yes, I have accumulated. Yes, my ego has accumulated a lot of Yoga Sutra commentaries. Goggin has a really good sense of humor, I've learned. He makes me laugh quite a bit. So yeah, it's funny because when I took a picture of a pile of my Yoga Sutra commentaries and I put it on Facebook when I was doing this class, and somebody in the Kundalini Yoga community who doesn't really like me very much, she wrote a thing and she sent me a private message and she said, "Be careful." And then that community there really looked down upon any sort of scholarly learning, generally speaking, like it's always looked at with suspicion. So she was really uneasy with me because I like to actually discuss, yoga history and philosophy and stuff like that. But yeah, we could say, look at me, I'm trying to accumulate all of this knowledge. And now this is a sattvic form of knowledge, so, doing the best we can. And so, yeah. So forbearance, being able to, keep going with things. I was thinking earlier about, to do any job well, you have to stick to it, to be a parent, to do to have a job, you have to stick to it. To keep a spiritual practice, a daily meditation practice, you have to have forbearance. Faith, humility, surrender. Those are all, we could put those pretty much in the bhakti category, all of those. Shraddha is faith, one-pointed faith. Humility is very important for those of us on the spiritual path so that we can continue to move forward without getting stuck in our ego too much. And then generally being freedom from conflicts. It's very, very important. that's back to the low drama. So now the interesting thing here, though, this is the Vedanta teaching, very relevant to monastics specifically. And Swami Brata, Veda Brata, who I said his name wrong. He says this is his commentary on this, which I think is very important. So, ataha can mean adhikara. So, ataha can mean qualifications. Like, do you have these spiritual qualifications? So, this is what he says. And although the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad states, then pacified, controlled, having withdrawn the senses, forbearing, harmonized, one should see the self in the self. End of quote from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And Swami continues, none of these qualifications is implied in the Yoga Sutras in regards to Ataha. None of these are, so I just went over them all because they're in the Vedanta tradition, but he's saying that they're not implied for the study of yoga, according to his commentary. This is not to say that any unqualified student may be admitted to the study and practice of yoga. The commentators are simply discussing Patanjali's actual intent in using the word ataha. Patanjali only wishes to express his desire to convey the knowledge. The desire to know on the part of the student is implied, and that Patanjali has the knowledge. So that's kind of three things. Patanjali is like, I have the knowledge, I'm going to share it now. It's implied that you want to know it, and it's my desire to share it at this point. So there exists in the tradition preparation prerequisites to imparting a technique, such as the student's application and raising of the question, and one's aesthetic observation and purification, and preparing the body. So this is again from Swami Veda Bharati. Am I saying that right, Gagan?
Swami Veda Bharati.
Bharati. Very nice. So this was an interesting little thing, because some commentators will claim, especially Advaita Vedantin people that are into the Yoga Sutras, they might say ataha is saying that you have to have adhikara. But it's kind of like, this Swami Veda Bharati, he's saying, no, it's not the same rigorous qualifications that they're talking about in the Vedanta tradition. So it's just saying, like, Patanjali's like, he wants to share this with people. And if you're curious, you should come learn about it. Okay, let's pause there. Do you guys have any thoughts or questions that you want to share just about that whole topic that we just went through?
I guess to clarify at the ending there, like you're saying, is from Patanjali's point of view, that's not a requirement, right? It's more of what you just said in this more recent slide. And that is just from a Vedanta point of view. Is that right?
That's what his particular view is, yeah. What Swami Veda Bharati.
His understanding is, okay, through his, yeah, okay. Gotcha.
I mean, I think that's kind of the case that, especially with the yoga system is, there's a lot of transformation. You would be using the yoga system to kind of create those qualities that would make you more of an advanced seeker. So you would be developing humility and forbearance and the ability to have regular spiritual practice through the system of yoga. So it's not that you would necessarily have to show up completely ripe, but like, do you know what I mean by completely ripe? Like you already have qualities. Where like in Vedanta, especially in Jnana Yoga, the expectation is like, you're not really going to be able to do direct inquiry unless you have these qualities already.
Yeah. So
How much of these qualities should be there? Sorry.
Is that a statement or a question?
Question, like how much, so these qualities are present and everybody has them. Like difference becomes how much anybody has it.
How much does any person have them?
Yeah.
I was listening to Pragyananda today, and he was saying everyone, like, he was like, this is me included, and like he's like a big famous guru, right? And he's saying negative karmas, like negative actions, he's like, I've done tons of them. Just like the restlessness of being in human birth. He's like, and we've all done all of them. So it's like, who really is this person that's like perfectly serene? And it's basically, in yoga terms, and I assume you know what this means, Ashley, but let me know if you don't, like perfectly sattvic, like a purely sattvic person. It's like, it's quite rare. And David Frawley, who I've been a student of his work for a while, he talks about like, like a person who's like sattvic on all layers it's like basically you're like Ramana Maharishi was like purely sattvic, it's like, and then who else was, it's like Yogananda started a worldwide organization. He had to have a lot of rajasic energy to be able to do that, it's like, so.
Well, I like this view in the sense that, yeah, it makes it so much more accessible, because I think, yeah, if you say, here's the qualifications, you need to have all these and you need to be 100%, people are like, peace out, yo, like, I can't do that. As opposed to like what you're saying, like, okay, I have some of that. Okay, I have some like interest in like growing more of that, right? And then maybe I can go down this path and then it just grows. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I really like what you just shared, Ashley. Like, if somebody even reflects upon those, would that not mean that person has that to a certain extent, that, okay, I would like to have this. So in order to be able to say that, he should have it to some small amount, even though it might be very small, it must be there, something that the person values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the yoga traditions, sometimes in a healthy and sometimes in an unhealthy way, focus on the transformational quality of practice. And I think one organization does a really good job with this, Ananda. They have a list. And meditation is good for, and they have meditation will not help with. Meditation is not good for. They differentiate. But generally speaking, without getting into the nuance there, just like, yoga is samadhi, which we'll talk about in a minute here. Yoga is meditation, and meditation has been proven over and over again to increase these positive characteristic traits, which seems to be why the Yoga Sutras are not putting so much emphasis on that at the beginning. Now we get into yamas and niyamas in the second chapter, which is another thing. Okay, meaning of yoga. So I was sending out some emails this week, and I was like using like a gimmicky little thing. I said, do you think you know what the word yoga means? Think again. So now this is a little circular where we're going to go, because most of us have been told that, yoga means to yoke, to join together, and it's true. That's what yoga means. Yoga means samadhi or superconsciousness as well. Now, when we get into the Sanskrit, and this is courtesy of, now I've heard Pragyanananda talk about it both in person and in his books for years, how there's 35 or more meanings of the word yoga. And thanks to Reverend Jagannath, I was able to copy them and write them down here for us to explore. The act of yoking, which was what we think about when we're doing, yoga, joining together, joining, attaching. So all three of these very much so are what we think of yoga: harnessing, vehicle. Now those, we can kind of see how those relate to yoga, but then we get into employment. So it's used, use, application, performance. So equipping or arraying of an army, a remedy, cure, a means, device, a way, manner, a method, supernatural means. So we can see how some of these things relate to what we might think of as yoga as well. A supernatural means or a method. Yoga is a method. Incantation, like to do a charm. Magical arts. Now this relates to, the tantric movement, and Hatha Yoga and a lot of the supernatural aspects that we find in the yoga tradition. I put this cough drop in my mouth and thought I'd be able to talk with it, and I'm backpedaling on that. A trick, strategy, fraud. Yoga means fraud. Understanding. Business, work, accusation, game, and profit. So I haven't looked it up. I'm sure that I led a kirtan on Saturday night, and I was talking about how the word yoga has all these meanings. I was telling everybody I was going to talk about it in this class. And I was like, what English word has multiple meanings? And people started like saying them in the room. And I was very sleep deprived because I had like 3 nights in a row with my 3-year-old where I just didn't get any sleep. And I was like blissfully sleep deprived. But somebody was like two, the word two. But those are different spellings as well. You've got T-O, T-O-O, and T-W-O, and they all have slightly different meanings. But it all sounds the same. Oh gosh, look, it's got my auto thing is recording everything that I just was saying. Did you guys see that? So in English we have words that have multiple meanings. Pragyanananda will often say that English is a very poor language, especially compared to Sanskrit. So here's more. We're just going to skip to the last few. Attention, to pay attention to something, that relates to yoga. Application of concentration of thoughts, abstract contemplation or meditation. So those are all relating to. Now these ones, a lot of these ones don't like to be well, an occasion, an opportunity, to partake or to take something, possessing, exertion. So now this could relate to Hatha Yoga, exertion, or tapasya, to do things to apply effort. An endeavor, yoga is an endeavor, like we're going on this path of endeavoring. Zeal, you need zeal on the yogic path, but diligence, you need diligence. So there's a lot of these words. Now, why did I take the time to go over this? Well, I'm assuming that you guys maybe find it a little just like interesting to kind of geek out on a little bit. It's my ego's desire to accumulate more information. Okay, so last week I was kvetching about Western academics who will often get involved with the Yoga Sutras and things like that, but they don't study the original tradition. Actually, I looked up Edwin Bryant, and I think he's actually really good. There's other academics that some of them I have developed friendships with, and I like them as people, but they literally, like, if I'm like, what's an acharya? What's the difference between dual and non-dual Vedanta? They don't know this. And these people have PhDs in yoga. And like, I'm just like some schmo who's hung out with some swamis, like a white guy in Michigan. And like these people that have PhDs and that are like at very prestigious universities, they don't even know what an acharya is. I'm like, if you don't know what an acharya is and you have a PhD in yoga, I mean, it's just completely shocking. I think Edwin Bryant, I didn't listen to him a whole lot, but he seems to really understand the whole contextual, like, I think he's actually studied the tradition, and he's not just trying to create a new narrative on the tradition like other people are doing. But so going back here now, when we know, like, if you go to a yoga class, people say, well, yoga means mean union, like most people know that. I mean, some people think it's just physical exercise, but we're not swimming in that into the pool here. So if we go to the commentary of Sage Vyasa, if you go to this, like, he talks about first the word ataha, and then he goes and he starts talking about the word yoga. And he very simply says, yoga is samadhi. So he's defining what yoga means. And this is the authoritative commentary on the Yoga Sutras. So, and that samadhi is a universal attribute of the mind field of chitta, common to all levels, the 5 ground levels of the mind field. So now this gets into some other things that I don't know if we need to really dig into super deeply. But the thing I want to get into is, like, if If you just zoom out and you're like, okay, so you take a Sanskrit dictionary, the word yoga has 35 meanings. And now Reverend Jagannath, as much as I like him, he's saying that you can take this, the 35 or the 40 meanings of yoga, and you can choose or like redefine yoga based upon that. Now, I think it's kind of missing the point that that's not really how you're supposed to approach the Sanskrit language, and that yoga, it's not talking about a military training, like to get a military ready, which is one of the meanings of the word. It's specifically talking about some of the other meanings of the word, and that's laid out in these early commentators, by these early commentators, like Sage Vyasa. And he's very specifically, Vyasa's yoga is samadhi. So I've often will say that yoga and samadhi are synonyms. So I'm not the Sage Vyasa commentary. When I think about modern commentaries that are more accessible, there's commentaries that are based out of Sage Vyasa's commentaries. So the commentary of, I keep bringing up Pragyananda, probably it's because Gagan is here and we've talked about Pragyananda, and I've just studied his stuff a lot. He's one of my teachers. I don't know if I can even really say because I'm a bad student. So Pragyananda, it's based out of like all of this stuff that came from Vyasa. Swami Vivekananda's commentary, the Raja Yoga book, it's based out of the classical commentary. Baba Haridas, it's based out of the classical commentary. Some other people are based upon, I read a translation and now I say whatever I want to say about it. so I just wanted to point this out. And now there's a lot that we could get into in this commentary here, but I just want to go on a little bit further about like why yoga is particularly, like the relevance of the word yoga within the spiritual tradition of yoga. So then we look at the Bhagavad Gita. And I have pulled up a whole ton of quotes from the Bhagavad Gita here. Oh, you've got Edwin Bryant's one there, right there. Have you read it? Or you collect commentaries like I do?
I'm a big collector. But he's good. Edwin Bryant is very good. He also does Friday evening classes, like Swadhyaya classes. I have not attended, but he's very good, very scholarly person.
Yeah, I did attend and it was very difficult for me. He was a little bit above where I was at, I think. So I plan on trying again, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Does he do stuff at the Vedanta Society in New York?
I do not know. When he was teaching class a couple weeks ago, I'm trying to remember where he was. He was not in the United States, that's for sure. He was like 12 hours time difference or something. So I don't know where he's even based out of.
Yeah, he might have been traveling. I think he teaches at Rutgers, right? So I think
He does, yeah. It was a
so.
Rutgers study, yeah.
I know that he's done stuff. I saw on YouTube that he's done stuff at Vedanta Society.
Yes, at least once he has given a talk. I attended it. It was quite good. And he's a lovely person in person, like to meet, like lovely, very warm, humble guy.
So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time of some of the definitions or commentary on yoga in the Bhagavad Gita, since the Bhagavad Gita works in synthesis with the Yoga Sutras. So the karma yogis who are of purified intellect and who control the mind and senses see the soul of all souls in every living being. Through performing all kinds of actions, they are never entangled. So this is a very lofty statement in the Bhagavad Gita. And this is not just talking about people who are on the path of karma yoga. This sounds like it's talking about people who've had success in the path of karma yoga, right? They're purified intellect, control their mind and senses, and they see the soul of souls in every living being. So, yes, just to reiterate, this is someone who has had success with karma yoga, not a newbie to karma yoga. Those who are not attached to external sense pleasures and realize divine bliss in the self, being united with God, through yoga, they experience unending happiness. So this here is a very theistic statement, being united with God through yoga. I highlighted it there. So this is what I jokingly, I have this whole list of things that I call the problem of yoga. And we find it with mindfulness as well if we get into it. But, yoga's become very popular in secular America. But at the end of the day, it's all about being united with God. G-O-D, baby. It's like, that's in this tradition. And once you start to try to take that out, I can create an argument for it being okay. But most people who are doing it they don't even understand that they're doing it, yet alone. So I can create an argument for them to defend them, which is yoga as a physical practice or pranayama as a physical practice. Meditation has been done by atheists in India for quite a long while. It's not like it's new. It's really big in America. But a lot of people are removing the spiritual component of yoga and they don't even know that they've done it. But it's a little problematic. Okay, so the Supreme Lord said, those who perform prescribed duties without desiring the results of their action are actual sannyasis, renunciates, and yogis, not those who have merely ceased performing sacrifices such as Agnihotra Yajna or abandoned bodily activities. So now this is all very Indian cultural stuff. Agnihotra Yajna is a specific kind of worship that people do. And so they're saying that these sannyasis are people who, well, Krishna is saying that those who perform prescribed duties without desiring the results of their actions are the real renunciates and yogis, right? So when you become, back in the olden days, a swami or a renunciate, a sannyasi, would very literally be someone who did not own anything, the way one of my teachers explained it, they said that they would not light a match, which was to mean that they wouldn't be involved with any of the rituals, because a lot of the rituals engage fire. So they wouldn't we're coming up here onto Diwali, Festival of Lights. There's lots of ritual lamps, burning of the ghee lamp. And this you might not know what I'm talking about, Ashley, but in India, Diwali, the Festival of Lights. So in the olden days before electricity, it was all lamps. Or like if you're going to do like the waving of offering incense to a deity in puja, you would no longer light the fire for the incense. Or you would no longer light the fire for the Agnihotra or the Homa, all of these different types of things. So when you became a swami, you did not do those things. Now at some point, and I don't know all the history of it, but now sometimes the swamis are like the carriers of these traditions in this modern age. Like the Kali Mandir in California, those swamis are like pujaris, basically. They're trained in ritual, all the Vedic rituals. They're functioning more like a priest almost. In the old sense, that would not be a swami's job. A swami would be like, I don't do rituals, I'm beyond it all. So that's some of the cultural commentary around what that's referring to. They're saying, the real renunciation is you could be doing the ritual, but you would be detached internally from it. That's the real renunciation, not renouncing actually doing it. So it's saying renunciation is actually an inside job. which is what Pragyananda, my teacher, always says, you can live in the ashram and be a monk, but if you're still attached to the outcome, you're no different than a householder. and that's what's going on most of the time. Most of the people live, but you could be a householder and you could actually be renouncing it all. You could be having a job and having kids and not be attached to the fruit of your actions, but fully engaged. So the external thing can be kind of misleading.
You have that in the signature of your email.
Yes, yes.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a lot of my online, just to cite this, the Bhagavad Gita I'm forgetting, I didn't put like a copyright thing in here, but this is, I can, if you guys want to know, these are specific translations. It's not from the Hare Krishnas because their translation's a little bit more difficult for me. These guys are a little bit more, but yeah, I took that translation from the same website. Seated firmly on it, the yogi should strive to purify the mind by focusing it in meditation with one-pointed concentration, controlling all thoughts and activities. He must hold the body, neck, and head firmly straight line and gaze at the tip of the nose without allowing the eyes to wander. Thus, with a serene, fearless, and unwavering mind and staunch in the vow of celibacy, the vigilant yogi should meditate on me, Krishna says, having me alone as the supreme goal. Thus, constantly keeping the mind absorbed in me, the yogi of disciplined mind attains nirvana and abides in me in supreme peace.
That sounded like Anapana to me.
Yeah. Were you thinking the same thing, Winnie? She was thinking the same thing. So I wanted to point out so Anapata and the Yoga Sutras have a lot in common. And I was talking about this last week where there's a little bit of bickering of, did the Buddha borrow from the Yoga Sutras, or was he influenced by it, or did the Yoga Sutras come after Buddha? Nobody really knows. It's a contentious topic. But, okay, seated firmly in an asana. So seated firmly on it, the yogi should strive to purify the mind by focusing it in meditation with one-pointed concentration. So having an object of concentration. Controlling all thoughts and activities. So that would be yama and niyama. Hold the body, neck, and head firmly in a straight line. So that would be describing what an asana is in the traditional sense, a comfortable seated posture. And gaze at the tip of the nose without allowing the eyes to wander. So now this is kind of annoying for the Anapatisati people here, but where is the root of the nose? Is it here or is it here? Here or here? So some of the Hindus will say that this is the root of the nose, and other people will say that this is the root of the nose. Tip of the nose. And then it's like if they say bring your eyes to the tip of your nose, is it bringing your eyes? Like Yogi Bhajan teaches that. Are you familiar with that, Gagan? Like Sudarshan Chakra Kriya?
Yeah.
So you stare at the tip of your nose, or are you staring at the root of your nose? So Pragyananda, he says that when the Bhagavad Gita talks about the root of the nose, it's actually like at the third eye point. But whatever, these are just fun little things everybody has, and at some point you have to pick your way, and then you can appreciate that everybody has different views, but it's good to like pick a way and stick to it. And certain things you shouldn't change, like especially if you've gone far enough down the rabbit hole. If you've been here for 5 or 10 years, you don't want to shift to up here. But if you've been up here for 5 or 10 years, if it's only 6 months, go ahead and change it. So then this whole second part of this is very much so bhakti. When he starts talking about, Krishna starts talking about himself. The vigilant yogi should meditate on, the divine personification, which would be Krishna, and making that your supreme goal. So that's all bhakti, devotional. O Arjuna, those who eat too much or too little, sleep too much or too little, cannot attain success in yoga. But those who are temperate in eating and recreation, balanced in work, and regulated in sleep can mitigate all sorrows by practicing yoga. With thorough discipline, they learn to withdraw the mind from selfish cravings and rivet it on the unsurpassable good of the self. Such persons are said to be in yoga and are free from all yearning of the senses. So, moderation is key. Now, I've got more quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, but we can pick up with those next week. Just to keep going. And with that, does anybody want to share any thoughts or anything here?
I don't have anything coming to mind. Well, when we were just talking about the tip of the nose or the third eye, obviously, like you said, obviously, that I'm not debating that in this moment because I don't know that I have a stance, but would that be similar then to what we would call a drishti in yoga?
Yeah.
Okay.
On that note, when I think about what is the root, I feel like neither I can say this is the root nor this. It's more like somewhere around here. That's weird.
Good luck with that. You're trying to get your eyes there, yeah?
So in Ananda, Yogananda's teachings, they teach that you start out feeling it at the tip of your nose, and then they let it expand up, and then you want to feel your whole nostril, and then you want to like allow it to then come up, and then you're feeling the sensations through the whole area, which is, and like for me, I've been involved with yoga schools since I was a teenager, and I'm in my mid 40s, and I've been involved here with Triple Crane. And so Winnie often talks about, using the right at the nostrils with the Buddhist kind of thing. So I've been playing around with that, and it's actually like for me, I was following this guy Keith Lowenstein. He's a Kriya yoga teacher, and he's a little bit like he's kind of into like following the prana with the point of focus. So he's like wherever the energy's at. So he's kind of like into, you start out here, but then like you allow it to like you let your attention kind of wander around on one point, which is interesting. And people just talk about kind of working with it in different ways, but yeah, with like Vipassana and Chan and Zen and stuff like that, you pick that one point, and it's kind of like it's like a mantra, like if you're just doing Om Namah Shivaya, you don't really move, you don't change your mantra.
So only during one, at least in my Vipassana practice, it's slightly different. When you initially start, you just breathe. You don't even worry about anything. Then, okay, you start feeling, okay, hey, see if you feel any sensation here. When you start getting better at it, like this is a bigger area, then you make it smaller because there's more air, so it's easier. So you improve your focus, but once your focus is good, you don't stay there, and you actually do like a body scan to it, so to speak. So you are kind of all over. So in some ways, they're not, I don't know, it's interesting. It's just different, like how sometimes, okay, there's a more focus here, but internally, I feel like both, if I think about Kriya or Vipassana, it's all like a lot of internal work in different ways, rather than any intellectual stuff, and you are experiencing reality inside.
And I mean, we're all speaking from like we all have what I'm going to call like a standard, normal functioning nose, face, whatever. But like obviously, there's a lot of people with different birth defects or just different facial features, right? And things like that. So I mean, I think to like overemphasize the physical component of it could be really limiting for some people too. So just also recognizing, like you said, like what's the goal and like the intention there, right, behind it, and obviously modifying that based on who you are, because that's going to vary for some people.
Definitely. It's one of the cool things I like about the yoga system is there's a lot of variability, changeability, especially when you get into like the Ayurveda influence. It's like life phase, what's the reality of what you're dealing with? Do you have any physical limitations? How to keep your practice going when you might, come up with different obstacles. And if you practice over, 20, 40 years of practice, you're going to have obstacles at some point. So, very nice.
Yeah, it's interesting that there is so much in just one word, atha.
Yeah. Do you guys ever follow Wim Hof?
It's been a while, but yes, I like him.
The Iceman. He's got like the
Mhm.
world record for how long he's like held breath holding, and then like going cold water plunges.
Mhm.
Like sitting like I don't know how long he does it, but he does like crazy long amounts of time, and he does like methods of breath work. And I use he's got an app that like does the guided breath work with you, and he just did an update on the app, and he goes Ata Yoga Nua, but he pronounces it really funny with his. He does like the first 3 or 4 verses from the Yoga Sutras, and he does it when people are doing their breath holds out. He talks about, and it's funny. He says, "These are the old. What are these? These are words, thoughts from old scriptures." Talking about going beyond your thoughts, going beyond your words. So let's do it. He's quite a character, but yeah,
He's very down to earth. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got some cool exercises that he does and stuff, and like cold showers. He's like the ultimate cold shower guru. All right. Did you want to share anything? She doesn't want to share anything. All right, cool. Well, let's I'm going to mute you guys and then we can do a little chanting and then we'll close this out.
I don't know what your settings were, but like I couldn't really hear your instrument earlier, by the way, again.
Yeah.
So
I've got definitely have last week I thought I had it on but then I didn't.
yeah, it was like it just like heard no, not really a lot of music. So we'll see. Yeah, weird.
Is that a special mala you have here?
It's Rudraksha.
Actual Rudraksha?
Yeah, they're
Nice.
Rudrakshas. I got them from Swami Shankarananda when he was here.
Hmm. Nice.
Yes. All right. Well, since we're having technical difficulties with this guy.
That sounds great.
The sound's probably getting caught. Let me try this.
Yeah, that sounds great.
How about now? What about
Oh,
I sing over it? Did it fritz out when I started to sing?
I know then we can only hear you.
You guys both make sure.
I think it probably does like a noise cancellation thing, so it wipes that out. That's my guess.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's we'll chant Om and then I'll do some closing mantras and you guys can do the mantras if you know them. Om.
Oh.
Do 2 more Oms.
Oh.
Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir
Ramaya.
Gurma Om
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityurma Mritam Gamaya Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Jurmamritam Gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Loka Sukino Bhavantu. Loka Shanti, Shanti. Tassa Om. Light in all of us. Namaste. All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you live close by here?
What was that?
Do you live close to the Triple Queen Center?